around us. With easy access to vaccination locations and the growing ability for more people to be protected, it's our best shot to keep moving forward. It's our best shot for a strong, healthy community. For more information, visit miamidade.gov/vaccine.
Good morning. It's Tuesday and it's 11 a.m., which means it's time for the FIU Music Hour on WDNA 88.9 FM, where we present live weekly performances in the WDNA Jazz Gallery and feature students, faculty, and alumni from Florida International University's Wertheim School of Music. I'm your host today and current FIU grad student Jerry Perez, and along with our producer Dr. Russ Spiegel and our executive producer Dr. Karen Velos, we'd like to welcome you to our show. Whether you're listening to us at home, in your car, or live on WDNA.org/FIU, we are delighted to have you with us. Today, we are pleased to feature the FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble under the direction of Mike Eckroth, who is a professor of jazz piano at FIU, and featuring FIU School of Music students Ivan Lucia and Justin Dixon on trumpet, Isaac Nyman on tenor sax, Keith Sellers on baritone sax, Tariq Baker on piano, Miguel Spiteri on electric bass and vocals, Francisco Castillo on acoustic bass, Napat Thanusthorn, Angel Vargas, Martin Iturralde, and Enrique Pulli on percussion. The FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble consists of undergraduate and graduate students from FIU's Jazz Performance Program, and the ensemble explores Latin and jazz styles grounded in Afro-Cuban rhythms. And without further ado, here is the FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble under the direction of Professor Mike Eckroth. All right.
Doing a lot of switching around here.
All right, and now here with me is the director of the FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble, Mike Eckroth.
I guess I should speak into the mic,
Yeah.
and I will.
So I have a few questions for you. So how long, if you know, how long has the Latin Jazz Ensemble been in existence here at FIU?
Oh gosh, I mean, this predates me. I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. It definitely goes back to at least 20 years before I even started here. So there was a string of other people that were in charge of this ensemble before me. But we've been working with this core group of people now for almost 2 semesters. We're halfway through our second semester with the same band, same rhythm section, you know, basically the same horn section. And I've seen this group really like grow from very, you know, basic understanding to, you know, actually sounding pretty good and pretty tight. And you know, I'm proud of the work these guys have been doing this year.
Nice. And how do students can get into the Latin Jazz Ensemble?
Well, we have a big band and we have combos and we have this ensemble within our department. So if you're a FIU music student, if you're a jazz student, you can request it if it's something you'd like to do. And then, you know, we make our determinations about, you know, who's going to be able to be in the ensemble at the beginning of each semester. But usually, you know, we like to stick, you know, around and have the guys do it multiple years in a row because you start to get all that knowledge and then, you know, it just helps the band sound tighter every time. So, yeah, you could express your interest in it. We have one marine biology student who is an excellent saxophonist, but everybody else is a music major, jazz majors, and yeah, it's been really fun to work with these guys so far this semester.
It's wonderful. And how do you choose the music for this ensemble?
Yeah, good question. I just go to open the real book and I go to a page and then I decide which, and then I just put my finger down. No. Actually, a lot of these are kind of standards of music in this genre. So for lack of a better term, we're going to call it Latin jazz. So it's jazz music and improvised music that has elements of North American jazz music, but it's really held down and supported by Afro-Cuban rhythms. So everything we did so far was a jazz composition using one of the different, you know, Afro-Cuban rhythms that are available. So I'm talking about cha-cha-cha, mambo, son. That was a Afro-Cuban kind of 6/8 groove. So we have a lot of those things available to us, and that's kind of the fundamental rhythm of this genre of music. So I choose things that come from important composers in the genre, and I choose things that I think are within the limits of what we can do well. So I'll do things for instance, the first composition we did was written by Cachao, the great Cuban bass player. So we will do some things that come directly from kind of improvised Cuban music. And that last song was Joe Henderson's composition, the great tenor saxophonist, jazz saxophonist. So, you know, a lot of this history of this music has to do with superimposing previous compositions, things that maybe weren't intended to be quote unquote Latin jazz, superimposing them, you know, onto one of these grooves. So that's how we came up with the idea with that. That was just kind of a head chart. And the previous one was the Mambo In, which is kind of a real standard of Latin jazz music. Everyone kind of plays it as a blowing tune. But that arrangement was from the Tito Puente Orchestra, and it had it had its own trumpet and saxophone stuff built in already. So we kind of just reduced that arrangement. It was originally a big band arrangement, so we reduced it for a smaller band. You know, so we're doing a mixture of all those different ways of approaching the music. You know, reducing things that were previously written for other kinds of ensembles, you know, changing stuff over, switching it up, putting a Latin groove underneath a known song, or just actually directly taking things from Cuban music. I mean, I think the three songs we played right now were good examples of those 3 options.
And for is there anything that these students need to know in order to play this type of music, like any important stuff?
Well, you guys tell me, what's the most important thing in the music? Okay, and besides the clave, which is fundamental, what did I say? I mentioned this last week. The most important thing is the groove, which is actually comes from the clave. It comes from the Afro-Cuban rhythm, the groove, and the clave, right? So one thing we think about is that no matter what's happening, just keep the groove. Doesn't really matter if there's some other squirrely things or mistakes. You know, it's just keeping that incessant groove is the most important element. So we stress that in this ensemble. And then everybody, I mean, nobody who's joined this group so far had experience in this genre of music. So I know Ivan's been doing it for a couple years. Isaac was there last year. Our percussion section is all new. And those are 4 guys who are jazz drum set majors. And so they're playing percussion instruments that they maybe didn't have that much experience on before. So, you know, they're learning the fundamentals of those instruments and what all the instruments do. You know, Tariq's learning what the piano does. Our bass players are learning, you know, what the role of the bass is inside these kind of Afro-Cuban and Caribbean and Latin American rhythms. Yeah.
And the last question I have is for someone getting into Latin jazz, what are some important musicians that they have to listen to?
Yeah, I just those 3 that we just represented are pretty important, or the couple that I mentioned. Cachao would be important, you know, as a Cuban musician. Tito Puente and there's a whole trajectory of both of those things. The New York Latin jazz music and then Cuban music are really important. And then we're about to do next a composition by the great Dizzy Gillespie. I always try to put some Dizzy stuff. So we actually have 2 Dizzy things coming up. Are we gonna do the slow one first? Yeah, let's do Tintin Deo and then let's do Manteca. We're gonna change order. And so both of these compositions are attributed to Dizzy Gillespie, and he was a really important figure because besides being an innovator in bebop and modern jazz, he was one of the first people to include the conga drum in a jazz band. He had that idea from playing with Cuban bands in New York City, and so that was kind of like some people say that's the birth of this genre of music, and he composed specifically for that rhythmic setting. So you're going to hear 2 examples that come from that period, late 1940s compositions by Dizzy Gillespie, the great jazz trumpet player. Yeah, you'll see that right now.
All right, thank you for taking the time to answer these questions. And now we'll be back to the performance with the FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're listening to the FIU Music Hour on WDNA 88.9 FM with the FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble under the direction of Professor Mike Eckroth. We'll be right back after these messages. This week, the FIU Wertheim School of Music will be hosting the following concerts. On Wednesday, February 22nd, at the Wolfsonian at 7:30 p.m., the 26th New Music Miami ISCM Festival presents Jason Calloway and Jacob David Sudol. On Thursday, February 23rd, at 7:30 p.m. at the Wertheim Concert Hall, the 2023 Miami International Guitar Festival presents the world premiere of Winwood Waltz, a concerto for guitar and orchestra by award-winning composer Stephen Goss. On Friday, February 24th at 7:30 p.m., also at the Wertheim Concert Hall, the 2023 Miami International Guitar Festival presents virtuoso Cuban guitarist Susana Frei Machado in concert. The festival will also include 3 concerts on Saturday, February 25th at the Wertheim Concert Hall, beginning at 1 p.m. with virtuoso Venezuelan cuatro and guitar player Eduardo Ramirez and singer Luciana Cube. Then at 4 p.m., Spanish guitarist Laura Verdugo del Rey, and at 7:30, virtuoso guitarist and composer Benjamin Verderi. On Sunday, February 26th, the festival will also include 2 concerts, also at the Wertheim Concert Hall, at 2 p.m. with Robert Trent, and at 6 p.m. with the Lippincott Jazz Quartet. And the FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble will be having their concert on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. at the Wertheim Concert Hall. For this and many more exciting events, you can find information at fiu.universitytickets.com or musictix@fiu.edu. And now, back to our show with the FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble under the direction of Professor Mike Eckroth. All right, what's the next piece you will perform for us?
This is associated with a lot of people, primarily Calcater, the vibraphonist. I want to little faster. One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
You've been listening to the FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble under the direction of Mike Eckroth, with FIU School of Music students Ivan Lucia, Justin Dixon, Isaac Nyman, Keith Sellers, Tariq Baker, Miguel Spittery, Francisco Castillo, Napat Nusorn, Angel Vargas, Martin Iturralde, and Enrique Pulley on the FIU Music Hour on WDNA 88.9 FM. I've been your host, Jerry Perez, and along with our producer, Dr. Russ Spiegel, and our executive producer, Dr. Karen Velos, we'd like to thank our production crew of FIU students, specifically FIU grad students, Josie, V, Ruben, and Paul, WDNA's sound and tech wizard, Alex Aldrich, and the staff of WDNA 88.9 FM for today's broadcast. If you would like more information on all of our programs, make sure to call 305-348-2896 or simply like our Facebook or Instagram page to stay up to date with all of our upcoming performances. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure to join the FIU Music Hour for more great music every Tuesday from 11 a.m. to noon. Thanks again to our guests, the FIU Latin Jazz Ensemble. And what's the last piece you would like to perform for us?
We're going to do a Cachao arrangement of the La Corona song, Si Bonet.
Nice.
One, two, three.
All right, thank you so much to the FIU Latin Jazz